Excellent.
Absolutely.
So, hello, Dan. Thanks for joining us today. So we're going to cover Brooklyn Gladiator, Fishkill, and we'll talk a little bit about Moon Lake, even though I haven't seen it. So Brooklyn Gladiator, if I'm right, started life as a Kickstarter project.
Oh yeah.
I did a little bit of research today.
Yeah.
I was doing a bit of a dig, so I was just, I noticed that.
Yeah, it started out um um as a project where it was with Tom Hodges, who was like does a lot of Star Wars stuff,
Yes.
and it was that was our volume 0.
Yes.
And so that was like my way of setting up the universe, kind of as a pitch tool. I was,
Yes, of course.
you know what I mean? So we put together volume 0, which is 50 pages of like setup for this Brooklyn Gladiator universe. And then I was going to take that and pitch that around to different companies and see if they wanted to actually, make Brooklyn Gladiator. What happened was, I made that and I was kind of taking that around, and my buddy Jay Baruchel, who I did
Yeah.
Fanboys with,
Yes.
um, he's from Canada. The main character, John Miller, is originally from Canada, and he's actually from Montreal, which is where
Okay.
Jay is from. And so John Miller it's in 2033. It's this dystopian cautionary tale, and it's like he's trying to escape America
Yes.
to go back home. So this spoke to Jay. He was like, "Oh yeah, I like it." He's going back home to Canada. And at the time, Jay was getting involved with Chapter House, which is the Canadian publishing company. And so then I was like, yeah, why not? Like, so they wanted to publish volume 0. I was like, oh, I never even meant to have this on on shelves. So that was a big plus. And then we got Glenn Fabry for the cover.
Yes.
Which was like, what? Like, he does the Preacher covers. And so that was really cool that's a cool thing. One of the cool things about being a celebrity in this business, it's hard to kind of, or semi-celebrity, whatever, to make a mark in this, because everyone's just like, prove yourself.
Yes.
But one good thing is, like, if you say like, hey, I'm doing this book and Jay Baruchel's involved, you have some of these guys who are fans and they're just like, yeah, I'll do a cover, so that's how we got that Glenn Fabry cover, which I'm so proud of. So that was volume 0, and that's how this whole thing started. And then we moved away from Chapter House and came to Heavy Metal, which is where like it should be. That's Heavy Metal is where it all started for me, basically. When I was a kid,
Yes.
my brother had his comic book collection, and I was more like a G.I. Joe's, like Transformers guy, and I was like just starting to get into comic books, and I would, I looked at his shelf, and I was just like, like, I saw something that was oversized, and I was like, oh, that must have big pictures in it, and I pulled Heavy Metal magazine off the shelf, and there were all the ladies and the cyborgs and the creatures, and I was like, oh my god. And then to see that animated, like, almost instantly, being like, oh, I wonder what this looks like animated, and then just like, oh my god, there it is on television, like on HBO over and over again, the animated movie. That made such a huge impression on me. So I would say all of my work is derivative of that, really, especially Moon Lake, which is like my Twilight Zone book. That's like that's the homage book. Everything I stayed up late past my bedtime watching. Twilight Zone and Omega Stories and Tales from the Crypt, and and Heavy Metal the movie. I was like,
of course,
oh,
with a Grant Wood pastiche cover as well.
yeah, this is
Yes. Yeah.
this is the American Gothic homage.
Yes.
And that's the narrator. My narrator is the man in the moon, literally a man that was abducted by aliens living in the moon, being forced to tell the tales of Moon Lake, and by his the audience of Greys who hold him hostage.
No.
Yeah, I think you dig it, man. If you're into,
I'll definitely check it out once.
That kind of stuff. It's
I was going to ask, so Simon Bisley came on board through Heavy Metal, I presume, for Brooklyn Gladiator.
Say that one more time.
Sorry, Simon Bisley came on board through Heavy Metal for Brooklyn Gladiator.
Simon Bisley. I had Simon Bisley on board already, which was I already started working on Brooklyn Gladiator Volume 1.
Yes.
And I had Simon had already done 2 issues already when I was looking for a new publisher.
Yes.
And so like I said, man, it was like supposed to, like Simon. I grew up on Simon, reading Lobo.
Everything, yes.
Yeah, and has been a guest on your show?
Oh, no, he did Slain, for 2018. You must have read.
Oh, yeah,
I'm not sure if you've seen that. He did the Slain series with Pat Mills before Lobo. 2018. I'm not sure if you saw it. Maybe you didn't.
No, I didn't see I didn't see that. No. Okay. But I'm familiar with his, heavy metal work.
And, of course, yes.
And if you've never had him as a guest on your show, I've had him on my podcast.
I know. I've known Simon for a few years. I first met him in about 1990, when I haven't seen him in a while. But I've met him a few times. I know he's very entertaining. So
yeah, he's a character, man. He's very, very entertaining. So I already had him involved. It helped to say, hey, I got Glenn Fabry. He did a cover,
Yes.
And then he was like, oh, and I was like, would you like to do a cover or 5? And he said, sure, and then he read it and he was like, I like this. I like it a lot, and I was like, oh, cool, man. You want to do interiors? And he's like, sure. So I was like, oh my God, I'm working with Simon Bisley.
Yes.
And I was, what happens is you get somebody like this and you're just like, you just like sit back and you go, just do your thing, man. Just and you sit there and you hope that they're going to produce for you some of the magic that they've, produced in the past. And he came through, man. It was really cool. I find that when you're like Ben Templesmith, who did Fishkill, is another guy that I grew up watching or reading. And to be able to work with him was amazing. And the same thing. It's just like, these guys all these artists are very volatile human beings. They're and inspiration and art comes in waves, and so you kind of have to be like an alchemist and like sit there and just be like, give them a little bit of encouragement, to give them a little bit of space, and and hopefully you get some gold.
Yes. So I was going to ask, so your co-writer Andrew Harrison on Brooklyn Gladiator, tell me a little bit about him.
Oh man, Andrew is great. Right now, what's he doing? He's working for Disney now. He does these he writes these like audio books for specific Star Wars characters and stuff. I think he's working on like C-3PO right now. And we made our bones kind of together in the comic book business.
Yes.
I met him on a Zen retreat. We went on to like this like introspective retreat, and he and I started talking, and we were both realized we were into comic books, and then we've been writing together ever since. Basically, he came on board for Moon Lake Volume 2.
Yes.
He wrote a couple stories in it, and he helped me create a more cohesive universe. And he's been there. He's like my editor a lot of the times. I'll write something and then I'll pass it over to him, and he'll pepper in some, awesome dialogue in certain places, and he'll throw out like a great idea, like, hey, why don't you, go down this path? And he and I've been, I like to have collaborators. I always like to have someone to bounce off of. Ben McCool has been that person for me sometimes. For Larry Blum, who co-wrote Fishkill with me. This guy, he is an actor first.
Wow.
And just like me, but he is also a lover of comic books and has just like a huge knowledge of these classic heroes. Like his favorite is like Green Lantern, and he's got like an endless encyclopedic mind about Conan. And so we kind of were just shooting the shit one day, and we're both from Brooklyn. And or from New York, and I thought, I was like, why don't we write something together? And we were kind of throwing something around, and I said, I always wanted to write a character who was, during the first part of his life, kind of like a misfit. He's just like can't do anything right, and he's the guy who is, if you've ever been on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yes, I have. I've walked it. I've only done it once, but I have walked it.
Okay, so I used to walk it all the time from Brooklyn into Manhattan to go to Forbidden Planet to get my comic book. And that was like my exercise a lot of the time. But if you walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, there are these poor cops in there who are on bridge duty, who are stuck in these 3-wheel meter maid cars. That don't go anywhere. They're just fucking stuck there. And it's like they're in their penalty box, just watching the world go by. And I was like, wow, what happens, you have a daydreamer like that who's been through hell and back and finds themselves on bridge duty because their issues with authority, and
just their penance. They're basically doing their penance on the bridge.
In limbo, literally. They can't go anywhere. And then something happens. There's a 9/11. There's some kind of incident on the bridge, and then they have to be the fucking hero. And and that's where, and this person steps up and becomes a hero in these circumstances. You need a man who is little has gotten his hands dirty in order to achieve, in order to help people in the apocalypse. So that's where it started, and sprinkled the seeds in there with Lawrence. And then
how did you get hold of that? Did Ben come on board?
Templesmith came on board. I've been trying to work with him for a long time, trying to find a project. I first wanted to get him on board to Brooklyn Gladiator, because I was working with Ben McCool, who became a friend of mine, and we were working on Moon Lake, and then he started working on Brooklyn Gladiator issue 2 and 3 with me, just to like throw in some cool dialogue here and there. And I said, let's look for artists. What are we thinking here? And I saw Choker. Which is what Ben did with Templesmith. And I read that, and I was familiar with 30 Days a Night and his darker stuff. And then this was my introduction to seeing Ben do like sci-fi, and I was like, oh shit, this is like fucking, it's like, it feels like Blade Runner. I was like, this is what I want. I was like, I want this for Brooklyn Gladiator, and because because I was working with Ben, I was like, Choker is a side. Choker could be what's happening in Chicago while Brooklyn Gladiator is happening in Brooklyn. It's like parallel universes. And he agreed, and he was like, maybe someday there will be some kind of crossover there. We talked about that, where the detective from Choker comes to investigate John Miller missing from New York.
Yes.
Further down the line. Anyway, that's how I got to connect with Ben. I was like, hey, man, we'd love you to jump on here. And because of schedules and whatever, it didn't work out. But then while I was working on Brooklyn Gladiator, I realized, wow, we're living the dystopian sci-fi, tale right now.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I got to write the prequel like as we speak. So that's Fishkill. I was like, okay, what are the seeds that are sown that lead to Brooklyn Gladiator? And then I called up Ben. I was like, hey, you want to draw this? And he was available. And I was like, okay, that's my guy. And maybe someday we'll switch him on to Brooklyn Gladiator. I'd love to see that.
Yes.
He did a couple covers for me for Brooklyn Gladiator, which are just beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, I love working with these guys. It was really cool because both of them, Beasley and Temple Smith, they dug the scripts. They wouldn't. They have to be inspired. And they were. So it was very cool. Very cool to work with them.
Excellent. So Brooklyn Gladiator, it kind of reminds me. It's sort of like, I know you say you haven't read that much of it, but it's sort of like 2000 AD on steroids.
Yeah,
it's how I kind of picture it.
It is. It's like 2033. Yes. This Orwellian world that could very well lead to, in just like 20 years from there, you got the mega cities from fucking Judge Dredd.
Exactly.
It's it lives in that. It's an homage to all of that stuff I grew up on, where everything is basically, you boil it down. Star Wars,
Escape from New York, presumably.
Blade Runner, Escape from New York, The Matrix. All of them are at the core is the question of, are we going to let technology consume us?
Yes.
Or are we going to use it as a tool?
Yes.
Or are we going to use it as a jumping off point, as a catalyst to become more
something else?
Fluff off the scaffolding of the technology, which is like the Jedi way. It's just like, there is no need for this technology. We have the ability to move objects with our mind. So that's at the core of Brooklyn Gladiator too, where you have this guy who is this, on the surface, he looks like just like Bruce Willis and Schwarzenegger had a child.
Like a big action hero. Yes.
Yeah, and he's like surviving in death cage matches, but on the inside, he's having this like psychic blossoming.
Yes.
And using his abilities on the astral plane, to navigate New York, and in almost a noble way, he's like a Robin Hood, where he's like helping the poor, and but he's really doing it just to get the fuck out. It's Escape from New York at its heart. So it is. It's my work is always an homage to other work, and it's the hero's journey. I always go back to Campbell.
Yes.
But
they're very different series. I mean, obviously, Fishkill is kind of like a sort of a. Well, I guess it's like a detective story with a supernatural twist.
Yeah.
Whereas Brooklyn Gladiator is more of a, kind of like a, I guess, like a kind of drug crazed sci-fi epic, if you like. So they're two very different stories.
Yeah, he's the John Miller is the anti-hero, Robin Hood criminal, essentially, trying to make his way the only way he knows how in this Orwellian world where everything is constantly scrutinized, and he's just trying to get by. He has to. So it's and then Fishkill is a detective. He's on the other side of it.
Exactly.
The two of them are reflections of each other. The both of them are as have had to, go through the mill as much as the other one has.
They're both outsiders in a certain way as well as characters.
Yes. And they both have special abilities that separate them, that make them special from everybody else. Fishkill on the outside looks like just he looks like Stallone meets Lenny from Mice and Men meets The Rock.
Yes.
You're like looking at him and you're just like, is this guy all there? And can he control his strength? I don't think so. That kind of guy. Whereas except the reason that he looks like he's daydreaming is because he's like constantly like fucking remote viewing. He's just like has a heightened olfactory sense, and he, through this, where you see he's like, whoa, he's tapped in differently. This was what makes him he's kind of got like a beautiful mind, where he's this was what makes him a good detective. And then you realize, oh shit, he was built. He was a cop. He witnessed 9/11. He went to Afghanistan. He got pulled into black ops, and he became kind of like a one-man army. He gets into like MK Ultra stuff. Mind control, remote viewing. Except he's the kind of guy where they're like a torpedo, it's like, okay, send him into this village and tell him to kill everybody. Except he would go in and he would come face to face with a child or a woman, and he just, there was some kind of super ego barometer that would stop him. And that's a glitch that the army doesn't like to deal with. So they erased his mind and put him back on the street, gave him a dishonorable discharge, and put him on the force. And but he works his way up and becomes this amazing detective. And because of the trauma of what happens on the bridge, and the city spiraling into martial law, and it being blamed on him, his control barriers start to unravel, and he starts to remember his programming, and he starts to be able to control these abilities. And so he's now like this Frankenstein who's like coming back to find his masters and teach them a lesson. Basically, the Fishkill is it's like The Fugitive,
I really enjoyed it. I read both. I mean, Brooklyn Gladiator was fun, but I thought Fishkill it really kind of connected.
Tell me, let me know what you think.
It reminded me a bit of kind of a little bit of kind of Batman, like Batman the Cult, or almost a little, with the stuff in the sewers and, fighting the rats, or even if you want to go for like a film illusion, almost like the final scene in The Third Man when they're chasing through the sewers in Vienna, where Harry Lime is being chased by the police at the end of The Third Man.
God.
And also the Spider-Man, my brain's not working, the J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck, the Craven's Last Hunt, where there's a lot of stuff underground. So this is about tapping into underneath New York. And I struck, that there were connections with those. I noticed there was a little bit of a kind of a nod to that, which I thought worked quite well. I thought it was quite powerful.
Man, you almost brought me to tears there. Thank you.
No, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really, impressive read, and
wow,
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. Holy shit. Man, those are some of my favorite books that you reference. Or it's
dealing with the underground as well. I mean, looking at the underground, like underneath the city, like the underclass. I mean, you look at things like Fisher King, or you look at people who live under the city, or even like the mole men in Fantastic Four. It's it's a great concept, or even like the Morlocks in the Time Machine. It's all about people that live underneath society and kind of how they're seen by everyone else. And it's still a really interesting concept. I think it still works really well.
It does, and it lends itself to a certain
kind of a feel, exactly, yes,
like a Middle Earth magical mythology.
Exactly, yes. So I mean, I haven't seen it, but I want to talk to you about Moon Lake.
Okay.
Give me the elevator pitch, because I haven't seen it unfortunately yet, but just talk us through Moon Lake.
Okay, so Moon Lake was, you remember how Heavy Metal the movie had the Lochnar?
Yes.
Which was the through line to everything.
Yes.
And the narrator. I mean, how fucking genius was that? And shows up in every single episode as just an object, or as like an alien, or as like this meteor. How fucking brilliant. So I was like, what's my version of that? So I thought, how can I make these, like, my Twilight song where the narrator weaves all the stories together. And then how can I get like the best of both worlds, where you have recurring characters?
Yes.
So I was like, I just had like I would create a character like Cave Girl and Z-Rex.
Yes.
She is obviously an homage to Tarna. Okay.
Yes, of course.
Tarna, who is, the gorgeous Amazonian warrior from Heavy Metal, who's their like mascot essentially, and she rides this pterodactyl.
Yes.
And they have this like symbiotic, relationship. So Cave Girl and Z-Rex is she has this. He's a zombie. Obviously, he's a zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex, and she has the ability to speak to the dead. And the two of them meet, and he is smitten with her and becomes her, follows her around like a puppy, essentially. But it is this like, undead dinosaur. And she is the sorceress who. So how did Moon Lake come about? I directed a movie called Hysterical Psycho. I directed this movie as preparation to play a young Alfred Hitchcock in a movie called Number 13. The movie never happened. The money fell through. I was supposed to be like, it was a great concept and a great cast. It was like me and Ewan McGregor, and it was like this close to going. And there were creative differences, and this way of this thing's always goes, and nothing ever happened to it. But in preparation, I was like, fuck, I have to direct something. I have to, the movie was essentially Hitchcock, like Shakespeare in Love. This was like Hitchcock in Love, where it was young Hitchcock, and he's going around, and you see like, oh, that's how he got the idea for that movie. And that relationship is how he got the idea for that character. So it was a really cool movie. Maybe we'll make it someday, but in preparation for that, I directed my own Psycho, which is more like I call it like Psycho on acid. Essentially, everything I do is
on acid.
On acid.
Yes.
So Hysterical Psycho is a story about this theater troupe who go up to Moon Lake, which is this place that's inherently haunted. For a million different reasons. And it's got ghosts, it's got demons, it's got, it's like everything. Every place there is like the fucking Shining, it's out of hand. And one of the characters there goes nuts and, classically starts killing everybody, cabin in the woods style. So I made that movie. It was really fun. And the narrator was the Man in the Moon. And I thought, well, shit, if I can tell this story, why couldn't I tell stories about Moon Lake from prehistoric times all the way up until now, all the way into the future? And that's where Moon Lake, the graphic novel, came from. which is essentially an anthology that's woven together by the Man in the Moon, who tells these tales.
So he's like the crypt keeper, from
He
East,
is.
basically. So he's the man who curates all of these stories, and he's connected to some of them.
But now give the crypt keeper like a real backstory. We don't know anything about the fucking crypt keeper.
No, we don't.
But now the Man in the Moon was a resident of Moon Lake. He was a kid.
Yes. Okay.
He was abducted by aliens.
Yes.
He now is stuck on the moon, forced to tell these tales of Moon Lake to this captive alien audience.
Yes.
And every once in a while, in between stories, he tries to fucking escape, and they pull him back on. And
okay, well, he's a captive storyteller, basically.
He's a captive storyteller, and so there's already he's a biological living being.
Yes.
He's not just your narrator. He's a guy that sometimes will fucking escape and try to pull the wiring out of the moon in order to deter the aliens from their plans sometimes. And then he's telling these tales about psychotic cheerleaders and sorcerers, cave women, and Sasquatches, which have the personality of like a Hunter S. Thompson, all of these different like vampires and demons and aliens and werewolves and everything are just all mixed together, working together side by side. And then sometimes the Sasquatch will show up in the zombie magician story, and sometimes they'll all get together and they'll travel to the fucking moon and have a apocalyptic battle. All of them will team up together and then start all over again, just like Marvel or DC likes to do.
So it gives you the luxury of telling any story that you want, basically, within the confines of the storytelling from the Man in the Moon, basically.
Yeah, you everything is siphoned through the Man in the Moon, and any of these stories can be spun off into their own individual character. I'm trying to make like an anti Marvel universe, essentially. And not, I mean, I love Marvel, but it's like cool. my own parallel dark Marvel. And we're cultivating it to make it an animated show. We're starting to pitch it around. And would you watch something like that?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's like it's imagine it's got like a rated R, South Park kind of,
why not?
Irreverent vibe.
Yes.
But everything with its sci-fi fantasy and all the classic horror characters in there.
Yes.
I think it's a nice mix.
Oh, cool. So are you Chris was saying that are you based over here at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in the UK right now.
Are you shooting? Because you're shooting, have you been here for a while?
Yeah, I've been here since December 2019.
Oh wow. I mean, have you been stuck here because of what's happened? So
yeah, we started shooting Fantastic Beasts 3.
Yes.
We were a week in.
Wow.
In April, and then we went on lockdown.
Yes.
So, and then we started up again in September.
Yes.
And now we're this close to finishing. We have about less than a month left of shooting.
Wow. So wait, is that shooting in Leavesden?
Yeah.
Because it's Warner. So how are you finding living over here?
I like it.
Strange.
Let me tell you something, man. Like, I got 2 little girls. I got an 8-year-old. I got a 4-year-old. They're in the school systems here. The school systems, when you become a parent, that becomes important to where you're living. And it's really good. They really enjoy it. And so that was a huge reason. I always felt like, I grew up in New York. I always felt like London, England was always a cleaner and politer, New York in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So it felt like home, in that sense, and it's become home. We kind of inherited the place we're at now And
so you're currently living in London then, or near London?
Yeah, right outside of London. And it's it's good for the commute. I don't know. We're kind of.
Are you thinking about staying here after the film finishes, or?
Oh yeah, we're thinking about at least trying to create some kind of dual residency. Because there's a lot of stuff shooting here. There's a
hell of a lot of things like Bristol I've been reporting on. There's a couple of big shows being shot in Bristol at the moment. There, Alex Rider's series 2. There's a series bizarrely with Christopher Walken. There's a drama they're shooting in Bristol, and he's got Christopher. It's kind of weird. I got sent the information. I ran the story, and they put the bios for the other people, and then they said also starring Christopher Walken. And they
no way.
And I said, "Is that the?" And it was. So they're filming that in Belfast. They've been filming Dungeons and Dragons. They've been filming a load of stuff, but over here as well, things are coming back. There's a hell of a lot of stuff. I mean, a friend of mine's doing a kids program over in Belfast as well. So it seems, and there's a lot of new studio facilities springing up in this country as well. They're building a lot of new places. It's really interesting. I think in a weird way, I think it'll be a boom time once all the weird shit ends.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a lot of really amazing things happening.
I agree. I'm trying to jump on the bandwagon there.
So have you been writing while you've been over here? I mean, some of these comic projects, have you been writing them while you've been in the UK? I mean, has it influenced your writing at all? Has it, do you write differently than if you were at home in New York, for example?
Yeah, that is a good question, man. Yeah, definitely the lockdowns have bred a lot of creativity and finishing projects, having time to finally finish a lot of stuff. And I have a nice little like writing space back here, like a little.
Nice. You have like a studio basically, or like a study to write in.
It's like this garden little house it's like a nice garden back here, and I don't really have that back in Brooklyn. It's a little, the houses are more on top of each other, and there's a lot of more distractions, but it's very I do a lot of good writing out here. Definitely finishing up, getting into Fishkill and Brooklyn Gladiator Volume 2, and starting to think about what the next chapter of Moon Lake is.
How many issues are Brooklyn Gladiator and Fishkill? Are they 5 issues or 6 or?
At the moment, we have 4 issues of Fishkill.
Yes.
With a trade coming out this summer. But I'm writing more. We're in the middle of writing the next volume. I think there will be. We have planned out story for at least 8 volumes.
Wow. That's pretty ambitious. There's a lot of story. Obviously, you got a lot of stories to tell.
Whether you want it or not.
I'm sure people will. And will that be with Ben? Will future volumes of Fishkill?
Oh God, I hope so, man.
You're not sure at the moment.
I really hope so. We got a miracle out of him, getting 4 issues out of him.
It looked amazing. I mean, I know Ben. We invited him. We did a comic show in Portsmouth, and he came over to the first year. So I've known Ben for a number of years. But what I like about this is I've noticed the stylistically is slightly different. It's a slightly lighter line to his drawing, because obviously I've seen a lot of his horror stuff, a lot of his sci-fi, but this. I've noticed stylistically it's slightly different. It's a different feel to his work.
Yeah, he's evolving.
Yes, I thought that was, which is it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah, his work is maturing. I think he's you can't really beat his emotional character work.
He's a very good storyteller as well. I mean, you look at his pages and you think, wow, it's really clear and it's really dynamic, and you can see what's going on, and it's interesting visually for the reader to read the stuff.
He I mean, if he wants to be the main artist for the rest of the series, it's his. I think what we got from him was a great alchemic response. He brought us gold, man. He really elevated it. It was already like a cool script, but he really, man, he brought it off the page, and Yeah, I really hope. Like I said, with these artists, it's kind of like they have
They've
the
got this very
inspiration.
busy schedule, haven't they? So you don't know if you can fit them in for, for every series, unfortunately.
Yeah, they go. They got to pay bills, and they
Yes.
have
Yeah.
to re-energize, and it's like you're tapping into an oil reserve. It's like
Yeah.
you
Yes.
gotta, yeah, it comes in
I mean, how
waves.
much input did, we'll say, Bisley and Ben have on the evolution of the two series? Did the look of them change once you got them on board?
Well, it became, their signature on it. Like I said, I gave as much description. I learned while doing Moon Lake,
Mm.
juggling a lot of different artists and egos and writers, and
Do you
that.
write DC style? DC's very dead. It's like you have stage directions, then you have the panel description. Is that how you script your comics?
Yeah, I do it like, yeah, I give as much stage direction without feeling like I'm too pushy.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
wanna give enough enough description, but allowing them to. And I'll even do asterisks and say, but you're a genius, so you interpret this how you want
How
to.
you
Like,
can, yes, of course.
I always say that, because, and then you find, like, then they feel freer. They feel like, whoa, well, I'm a genius.
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
know, and they are. You just have
Yes.
to, if they feel like they're appreciated, I feel like they're gonna rise to the occasion, and they do.
Yes. So you're obviously, you've acted in a lot of things, but you've written quite a bit now. I
Yeah,
mean, you feel comfortable as a writer now, more comfortable than you did, say, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, 2 or 3 years ago, I would guess.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, somewhere along the line, I had good teachers between Ben McCool and Andrew, and just immersing myself
Mm.
in reading a lot of comic books of my favorite writers and artists, and just taking a cue from them, and working with directors. And it's making movies is very similar to
Yes.
storyboarding, and
Yes.
comic books is very similar. So using that experience, um yeah, I would say I do feel good. Feel more confident in the writing world. When I did Moon Lake Volume 1,
Yes.
I wrote out almost 200 pages
Jesus.
of outline description
Yes.
of each story.
Okay.
Okay. And then I gave that over to them, and I said, well,
What do I do
I'll
with it?
write all of it if you
Yes.
want me to. And they
Yeah.
were like, okay, but for this one,
Just do these ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
just do this. Just write the narrator interstitials and
Yes.
the story here or there. But we're
Yes.
gonna get all these other and that's great. I'm glad they did that. They
Mm.
they got all these other writers in, and they put
Yes.
their stamp on certain stories, and certain stories were elevated. And I was like, oh, I never even thought of that. It's fucking great. And some of
Yeah.
the stories were like, okay, fine, yeah, I'll deal with that, and I'll fix it later. But I'm so happy that I brought all these different minds on board to
Yes.
contribute. Um, and then for volume 2, I was definitely like, I want to handle this a little bit more. I want to. And volume 2, with Andrew's help,
Mm.
became more like the eventual animated series that I wanted it to be.
Yes. Yes.
If you read volume 2, you see it's set up like a cold open to a
Yes.
cartoon.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and then you see him standing on stage with all the, it's not as clear in the first one. But the
Yes.
second one, I was like, this is the universe that I want to present. And um so the experience of working on the first one gave me the confidence and the knowledge to really hone down the second one. uh yeah, to answer your question, writing movies too.
Yes.
um I've recently had Fogler's Fiction Fest,
Nice.
which is like talked about all the comic books and all the movies and
Yes.
had all these interviews, and it's online. It was on
Oh,
NerdBot.
cool. Okay.
I interviewed great interviews with Mads Mikkelsen,
Nice.
Bob Odenkirk.
Yes.
We had the Fanboys reunion,
Oh, fantastic.
and we had the Balls of Fury reunion.
I met Mads Mikkelsen very briefly. I did a Hannibal set visit in 2013 in Toronto. So
Cool,
I met him, James Dancy, and Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. So I was going to ask you, in terms of influence, like comic writers and artists, who would you say are the people that you go to for inspiration, or people whose work you've admired over the years?
Right. Garth Ennis, Alan Moore, Brian Azzarello. Like Watchmen had a major influence on me.
Yes.
And then that book is intense. And then spinning off from that, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, reading that stuff.
Yes.
And seeing how he handles superheroes, I really appreciated that world.
Yes.
And then like I said, Garth Ennis.
Yes.
Like The Boys. Fucking love The Boys.
Yes.
Love 100 Bullets. Brian Azzarello. You a fan like that team?
I know him, and Eduardo Rizzo I know as well.
Oh, do you?
I've interviewed him. We did a book. Actually, I was going to say, how long are you over here for? How much longer are you over here for? Theoretically,
I'm here for a while, man. I would love to meet.
I could send you like a care package of stuff, because I know there's things. We did a book about comic artists in their studios.
Yeah.
We had Frank Miller, Eduardo Rizzo, Dave Gibbons, Brian Holland, everybody. So there's some stuff I'd love to send you just for the hell of it. So if I get your address off Chris, I'd love to send it to you.
Oh, I'd love that, man. Frank Miller, who is just like a one-man army, like,
amazing.
Dark Knight.
Daredevil was magnificent. His Daredevil run with Klaus Janson, and Batman Year One was another. It was an amazing series.
Amazing. Eduardo Rizzo, for some reason, I just love everything he does.
His stuff is very cinematic. And did you read? He did a book called Batman Dark Knight with Paul Dini. Paul Dini got attacked. Did you see it? He got attacked in LA.
Yeah.
And it was like a semi-autobiography. It was a brilliant book, and it was drawn by Rizzo, and it was a really different take, on a Batman story, and I thought it was amazing. And Rizzo's stuff is just so cinematic.
That's why I read that book, because of Rizzo. I was like, I just want to read everything he does. And it's because of that book. I was talking to Simon Beasley on.
Yes. Oh, really?
During the interview.
Yes.
For the Fogler's Fiction Fest, and he was like, trying to find something I want to do next, and I was like, he was like, I want to do like a redemptive story about myself, and I was like, and then I thought of that book, and I was like, whoa, what if I suggested to Simon, I was like, why don't you do like a Scrooge, Ghosts of Christmas Present Future, have Lobo, as one of the characters, you know what I mean? And then I just saw his eyes light up. He's like, that's a good idea. We'll see. Maybe that'll happen. That would be so cool.
Oh, that is funny. So cool. So obviously you're obviously doing a lot of different things in terms of the writing. So you're obviously in a good place at the moment in terms of the the comic stuff, and also the film stuff as well, obviously.
Yeah, my plan is to keep on trucking along here. We're gonna finish Fantastic Beasts.
Yes.
And I'm focusing on selling, these projects, the Moon Lake animated series. I'm adapting Brooklyn Gladiator as a film.
Nice.
With George St. Pierre. He wants to get involved. He's the mixed martial artist, like huge.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, like arguably like the greatest of all time, wants to beat John Miller. So hey, fuck it.
Yes.
That sounds amazing. And my plan is I want to go back to New York for
Yes.
at least the summer. Hopefully do a little Walking Dead. I do that show,
Yes.
and then maybe a little Goldbergs. I do that show.
Of course.
And then back here for hopefully more work and finishing up the comic books. There's definitely going to be more
Nice.
Fishkill and Brooklyn Gladiator and Moon Lake coming out in the next couple of years for sure.
Cool. Well, listen, thanks again. It's been a fascinating chat, and congratulations. They're really fun books.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, like reach out, let me know.
I'd like to send you, so if Chris can give me your a postal address, so
For sure.
I can send you a big pile of books, which I know you'd appreciate.
Yes.
So
That'd be great.
cool. And listeners, thanks again. That was absolutely brilliant.